Sometimes I need a little brightness in my life. And what better way to brighten my day than with a colorful piece of jewelry? An inspirational duo that has been creating pops of color to wear for over 20 years are Rosie and Harriet Vine. With their jewelry brand Tatty Devine, they supply us with jewelry that is quirky, funny, and sometimes deeply political. Both awarded an MBA for their contribution to fashion, their brand has stood the test of time, stayed on trend, and regularly pushes contemporary agendas, feminism and equality, for example. To talk about their career to date, what it is like to run the brand, and what they have in store for the future, I have invited Rosie and Harriet. Welcome both.
Hello, thanks for having us, Sophie.
Hello.
Thank you for joining me. So Rosie and Harriet, to start, could you perhaps each tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Okay, yes. So my name is Harriet, and I met Rosie at art school many moons ago, and we started making whatever we wanted, basically. And now in the business, I mostly do all of the drawing and all of the product development and do all the storytelling through the imagery. So I kind of do the practical side of what we do, essentially.
So Harriet's our creative director, and as she says, does all of that. And then I sort of look after the other side. I seem to sort of head up mostly the PR and marketing, but also the sort of business development and the team and just keeping everything on track. And making sure it sticks to our sort of, our raison d'etre, which is really to have fun and to express ourselves really through our jewelry.
So you were both not necessarily trained as jewelers. What drew you to start a jewelry brand?
Well, we didn't mean to start a jewelry brand. Rosie and I both did fine art. And when we first started, we were going to be a band one week, we were going to do illustration one week, we were going to be probably chefs another week. We just had this overriding urge to create things and make things and do things and be part of something. And when we were young, back in 1999, when we left college, we were just making outfits, making jewelry, just tying on bits of anything that we found in junk shops and charity shops onto our bodies to become outfits, kind of to telling the world who we were, which is also kind of our entry point into jewelry.
Yeah, we didn't have any money, and we also really desperately did not want to look like anybody else. And that's always been a sort of a motivation, is like, let's make something that's never existed or doesn't exist, which by default has led to making really original work. But as Harriet says, like, we were just making stuff to wear. We started doing a market stall, which essentially was paying the rent. We didn't want to get proper jobs, as it were.
Never had a proper job.
One thing led to another, and before we knew it, we had a full-time, full-blown business.
Yeah, because we found a lot of leather in a bin, essentially, and we cut it up into little wristbands, because I was wearing a bit of old belt that I found in a charity shop around my wrist, like a cuff. And that was kind of the beginning of kind of the idea of commerce around buying and selling things, which moved us from making things just for ourselves into selling things and sustaining ourselves by it. But the transition towards jewelry was more like proper jewelry, as it were, because previously it was definitely, would call it accessories, because it was small leather goods, really. Belts, we did a lot of belts when we very first started, lots of cuffs, lots of belts, lots of like neck pieces. That didn't have any metal components at all, or anything that you would consider to be traditional, because we just had absolutely no idea where you'd buy those things from, and we didn't have any terminology. I didn't know the word jump ring. There was no internet, so we couldn't Google how to make jewelry. We made up our own unorthodox techniques because we just wanted to attach things to our bodies as opposed to do it properly. So we'd never learned how to solder anything, or anything about where you'd buy things from. It was just not an option. So we just felt our way through kind of like a landscape that was not accessible, essentially. So we and we always have done things our own way, essentially.
It was probably about 10 years ago we realised that actually let's just stick to jewellery. Jewellery became a thing. And when we were doing small leather goods, you know, belts were super fashionable. They were all, you'd wear them around your hips, like very, very specific. And actually, because we've got our exhibition touring with the Crafts Council at the moment, and doing all the research into our archive and pulling out all the relevant bits, found quite a few articles from the late 90s about how belts were like the thing. But we just, as Harriet said, followed our noses and made things we wanted to wear. And it quite quickly, well, very organically, but it just morphed into jewellery, and it, you know, just being jewellery, it kind of crystallized. And
in the beginning, we didn't just make jewellery, as it were. We made everything else. So we were making, like, to get into the fashion week, we didn't just send our samples in. We made like a giant pick and mix bag, or we made a giant pearl necklace box. And when we did our first ever collection, we did a pop video to go with it, and we made a fanzine. So we were just like creative wizards, essentially. We just were making stuff everywhere.
Like always creating a world, the Tatty Devine world. Not necessarily, there was no plan. It was just that we were really obsessed with what we were into and our friends and everything we did. And it was quite hard back then to separate life from work. It was all one. And I guess, you know, we had a sort of education in becoming artists, and that was really our, the direction we went in. It was all or nothing. It was 24/7. We lived and breathed it, but it did create a very, very sort of authentic world, and a very authentic language for ourselves to use as jewelry designers and makers. It has a very solid foundation of, we did a lot of work developing that world. We went to a lot of parties and went to a lot of gigs and art galleries, and, you know, immersed ourselves in our world.
The obvious question then to ask is, of course, you did it with the two of you. You didn't do it alone. What made you decide to do it together?
I think we were living together. So we were finishing our degree at Chelsea, and for whatever reasons, I ended up living with Harriet, and we graduated. I mean, when did we graduate? So May, June of 99.
Yeah.
We were just hanging out together. So we very quickly, our first market store was in July. So it was very, very quick. We were living together, we were making stuff. We thought, let's sell it together. And I mean, there was a point in about August, I remember getting a phone call from Harriet saying, just had like Urban Outfitters along to the market store. They want to place an order. Shall we do this? Is this like, this is actually quite serious now. Shall we do it? And we'd found a name, etc. And we sort of both, I guess, committed to each other, that we were both committed, really, that we excited by it and wanted to keep going together.
Yeah, it was like just an extension of our friendship, you know, really. You know, we'd made a quarter of Rosie's bedroom into a studio already. We found some old bits of wood on the floor and made a wooded floor area, and had been drawing funny little bits in sketchbooks even before we left college. I've got a sketchbook that says Harriet and Rosie down the spine of it, with like weird drawings in it of a skirt that's like a lampshade that you can pull up with a string like a Venetian blind. And like we were cutting off old pairs of jeans and twisting the legs around, and we were upcycling but didn't have a name then. Just making stuff together. I think the market stalls with Rosie was always really fun, you know, just like it was just an extension of the night before, essentially.
We lived in Brixton, and we'd go out Friday night and possibly not go to bed.
Just go straight to the market.
And I would drive over to Portobello at like 5 a.m. Oh my God, probably still dressed up from the night before. It was just
definitely still dressed up from the night
having
before.
A lot of fun. It was really, really fun.
But also at college, we did this lovely seminar about Tracy Emin and Sarah Lucas and their shop they had on Bethnal Green Road called The Birds. You know, so it was like not a million miles away from just an art practice. It wasn't like we wrote a business plan and sat down and we're going to be businesswomen. You know, it was much more different. It was coming from a different place than where we are today, essentially, which is like a proper going concern. Then we were just a bit fancy free essentially, and we just wanted to move to Hackney and drink wine and make sure we were in the middle of where the zeitgeist was, really.
That's amazing. But yeah, as you say, you did build a business, a successful one, might I say, and collaboratively. What do you think is the key to that success for it to become that successful business?
Really, really strong work ethic.
And trust.
Rosie and I never stopped.
No, we never stopped, but we also were always very, very much respectful of each other. You see lots of partnerships come and go, and it's, you know, it's hard work sometimes, but ultimately Tatty Devine is like our shared baby child, grown up now, oh my gosh. But you know, it's everything to both of us, and we have huge amounts of respect and trust in each other. So I think that's the really fundamental basis of running a business with somebody, is you've got to have shared goals, essentially, which is to nurture and look after this thing you've created. So we've both, whatever our actions have been over the years, have always put Tatty Devine first, really.
Yeah, and fundamentally as well, when it started, it was fun, and it should just continue to make us have fun. So it's like one of those things where we should just it provides everything in our lives, you know. It's like, it's kind of an amazing thing to be able to do whatever you want and for it to sustain you. I mean, I come to work on a Monday morning, and I sometimes struggle to imagine what it must be like to not like to go to work. You know, I can't join in with those conversations. People have them, I listen to them, and I just think, why do you do that then? What are you doing that for? That sounds awful. Just don't do it anymore. But obviously it's not that easy, and that makes me feel, and I'm very grateful for everything that we get to do. I'm grateful that Rosie and I have got such great complementary skill sets as well. You know, just like neither of us would have done what we've done by ourselves. I think that there's a special kind of magic in essentially, you know,
It's
like
tango, doesn't it?
yeah, you know, I mean, and there's stuff that we've done that's been really challenging. You know, there's been really tough moments, and there's been really there's been pure elation as well. And without someone to share in those things, I can't imagine what that must be like, you know, and someone to go, you know, it's okay, we can just walk straight into Vogue, of course we can, you know, or we can just get on a plane to Japan, or we can just, you know, work out how to do the VAT. It's like sometimes you just need someone to hold your hand, kind of thing, a little bit, or and talk to. It's like we're going to make some jewelry. It's like, can we make a lobster necklace that goes all the way down to your belly button? And it's, you know, like your inner monologue's going, yeah, I think so, but maybe everybody in the whole world else will think that's completely mental. And Rosie go, yeah, of course we can. And then go like, then that's all it takes. It's just
it's like putting confidence in
yeah.
each other that we're doing the right thing. They're having a strong, I think the vision has been there since the start. You know, when you run a business, you do need to make the figures add up, and it all needs to work. But ultimately, I don't think finance has ever been what motivates us, really. I mean, as Harriet said, it's Tatty Devine looks after us. It enables us to exist. It pays our rent, and it, you know, etc. But it's about making really brilliant jewelry and stuff, and, you know, filling the world with creativity, really. And being, as Harriet said, it's like being enabled to do that. We're so lucky that we can do that. It's amazing. But that vision is very clear, and I think we've become quite good at communicating it to our team and to each other, and sticking to it, really.
I wanted to ask you, all Tatty Devine jewelry is designed and handmade in-house by your team. You have made this a really important aspect of the business. Has that been a challenge to sort of combat these trends of moving production abroad? And how important is, you know, your team to your business?
Oh, 100%, massively important, completely and utterly important. And also, we're complete control freaks. So, I mean, the thought of having anybody else make our jewelry is just completely off the just no, basically. It's like we've spent the last 20 years developing quite a bespoke way of making jewelry. And there's not just a factory that we could get it made in. You know, it's just like, It would change it in its complete entirety. It would change the way it had to be made. It would change the quantities in which we had to make it, which would then in turn impact upon our freedom to make the more bonkers jewelry, if you like. It's like we have a certain amount of creative freedom because we manufacture ourselves, so that we don't impose minimums on ourselves. If we think something's just a little bit off the wall, we can only make 10 of it. Whereas if you tried to have that relationship with a factory, they wouldn't put that into production because it would make financial sense.
Also, we've got one of the joys of Tatty Devine is that we're quite agile. We're able to be quite reactive to things. So that being in-house is just brilliant. We could just go, yes, we can make 100 more of that tomorrow, or whatever it is. So it really enables us to respond to things and how things sell, very much as Harriet says, it's all in our control. So yeah, it's super important. And right at the beginning, we did look into manufacturing abroad, but it was just it felt so difficult. And actually all our time is given to making things as brilliant as possible. Being on an aeroplane every other month because you've got to go and check on the factories just would feel like a waste of time to us, when we could be selling it, making it, thinking about it, talking about, it's just, yeah, we didn't want to waste time doing that.
Yeah, I mean, and also the team just grew so gradually. We didn't like one day just decide to set up a factory. It was like our first member of staff came to work for us ever, and she came to make jewelry, which essentially previously to that had been me, and so when she first came, I just was like, I don't really know what my role is in the business anymore if she's come to make the jewelry. And then we got our own laser cutter, and I worked out how to use the laser cutter. And then we got someone to run the laser cutter, so it's just like gradually our team really just become little parts of Rosie and I, just like eventually you need to have someone to like head up operations and finance and things like that. But they started off with me and Rosie doing all of those roles, all of the wholesale, all of the everything. And then you just don't have time to do it because everything grows gradually, and then all of a sudden you've got a team, and they are like a family essentially. Like we refer to ourselves as Team Tatty, and we do things in a certain way, and I think everybody is invested in the vision, and that in its own is just a lovely part of the world to exist in.
Tatty Devine jewelry is colorful, it's playful, but you also, like you said, you do smaller runs or you do things with a political message. Could you tell us a little bit more about sort of these really special pieces, the pieces and initiatives that you support?
I guess, Harriet, I mean, we are and always have been feminists, and that's just who we are. And we're lucky enough to be our own bosses, and the patriarchy has pressed down on us in the past, but we've managed to create an existence where we can be in charge and not feel too impacted by it. But as it was interesting, like from the campaigning perspective and from the feminist perspective and equality, I guess we first noticed what's now known as the third wave in around 2013, where there was the campaign to say no more page 3, and the organisers of that came to us and just said, do you want to get involved? And we were like, yes, 100% want to get involved. And that was just a sort of the beginning of this dialogue, I guess, with campaigning organisations. And then in 2018, Year of the Woman, which was 100 years of suffrage for women, we spoke to the City of London, and they were organising the Gillian Waring statue to go up in Parliament Square. And it was the first statue of a woman in Parliament Square, and it's the first statue by a woman as well. So all of these things would just really press all of our buttons, basically, like get me and Harriet excited and interested, and we want to be part of that and help spread that message. And we spoke to them about making some jewelry to sort of commemorate it and to help share all of those messages, which we did. And from that, we worked with the Fawcett Society, who are the leading gender equality charity in Britain. And it just really is something we just absolutely believe in. It's not, we don't even have to think twice. We just want a fairer world. And, when you look at what's going on in Afghanistan right now, it's absolutely horrifying. And you just we take for granted where we're at, but there's so much more work to do. And we just found quite interesting that jewelry is actually, it stems back to having a badge of affiliation. It's like, I wear this badge because I support this cause. Well, jewelry does that too, and taking that into necklaces and and it's just been fantastic, and it's allowed people to really express themselves in a contemporary way, essentially.
Yeah, because the pieces always start conversations, like if you're wearing Tatty Devine, invariably someone's going to come up to you and ask you where your necklace is from. And if it's got a message in it, then you get to tell somebody else about your message, and invariably they're going to be interested and they're going to tell somebody else. So it's this really brilliant way of getting a message out there. And as people who've got like a certain amount of public visibility, I feel like it's almost like our duty to make sure that we bang the drum for things that we care about.
I think positivity is a really big part of us. I think both Harriet and I are sort of absolutely very positive people. We always look at the positive side of a situation, which I think actually, when I look back, has been really an important part of our journey, because we've always stepped forward in a positive way rather than being pulled back in a negative way. And I think that's really important.
The brand has also considered sustainability, which in the first instant might not seem straightforward, as your medium acrylic has got a bad rep. But could you share why the material appealed to you in the first instance, and what you are doing to be environmentally conscientious?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's a really complex one that we're currently just beginning to slightly unpick, as it were. We were always drawn to bright, colourful plastic things. So Harriet and I spent most of our time in junk shops, charity shops, car boot sales, secondhand stuff, and finding bits of plastic from the 70s or the 60s, and just finding an absolute love in that, and it really telling a story, whether it be quite nostalgic or for whatever reasons. And when we started making jewelry, what really seemed to chime was when we started using the brightly coloured acrylic. So that's obviously become part of our aesthetic, part of our DNA, part of what we make and what we do. And it's been a really interesting few years, because we've been watching the bioplastic development very carefully. It's still currently quite brown and grey, which just doesn't work for our aesthetic and for what our customers expect. However, we are making really good strides into recycled acrylic with more and more. We're currently at about 10% of our products are made out of recycled acrylic, and we're trying to get that up to 20. And we've set ourselves some goals to really look at that and work at that. And we use wood where we can. I think where the story around sustainability is a very wide and complex one. And when you start to look at our business and our practices, we have an incredibly ethical practice. The product, it's not throwaway, it's not landfill, it is forever. And in fact, we want it to last forever. And we've always made a habit of making as little waste as possible. So everything is cut, tessellated within a hair's width of it, within its life. So there's very little waste. The waste that we do create is recycled. Recently, we just managed to get it sent to the people that create the recycled acrylic we are now using. So there's a sort of very circular operation going on there, which is really, really important. And, we make product that lasts forever because it's meant to last forever. It is for people to carry on wearing. We offer a repair service, so if there's ever a breakage or a problem, we can fix it. And so, when you start to look at it more closely, you realize that it actually is quite a sustainable business. In the grand scheme of things, we use very, very small amounts of acrylic. Acrylic's generally created for solar panels and shop display and huge mass pieces of work. So the small amounts we use are small. I mean, that doesn't forgive the creation process, but at the moment we're really looking into the science of that and understanding that, and seeing hopefully in the next few years where we can start offsetting our footprint and really understanding that in all the detail. But ethically, we've signed up to the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. We're very much signed up to the production and consumer side. So was making sure all of our, wherever we can be recycled, with the packaging, etc., that's all above board. And then on the sort of gender equality side, we'll continue our work in making sure that we can help promote that using our jewelry as a force for good. I think that's the end of my spiel.
It was the material that we started with, it was the material that gave us the freedom to do what we wanted to do, and it still does now. So there's less waste in general because we only make what we need. And I am a firm believer in not filling the world full of rubbish. It's like I only want to put things in it that are truly beautiful and truly original and that people are going to truly love. And I think if you only make things like that, they're not going to end up in the bin, which is the only problem about plastic. The only thing, we should just treat plastic the same as we treat gold, and then this wouldn't be a problem. You would never put a golden lunchbox in the bin. Just don't treat it badly. It should.
That is so true.
It should
So
just
true.
is.
You have also branched beyond jewelry, having developed kits, workshops, running events, and of course your exhibitions. How important is this side of the business to the business and to you as to creatives?
I think it's really important because it lets people kind of be part of it, and I think Tatty Devine is quite inclusive, and I think it's really nice to have that communication and connection with our customers. Because when we first started on the market stall, that was all we got, all day long. You just talk to people about it, and it's that level of communication and care essentially that we kind of excel at, and being able to have that fun with other people, essentially, it's like an excuse for a party kind of thing.
All the events, they're so sort of being part of a community, really, whether it's the art community, the craft community, the fashion community. We can get involved in so many things. The workshops were quite an organic thing in a way. I think it's just something we just started doing, literally. We do them at events and then realize how much fun they were. And like Harriet says, it's that sort of inclusivity and an ability to allow people into our world and just chat to us. We just love talking. So yeah.
And then the COVID pandemic, have there been many changes that you have made in the business as a result? Have there been any lessons you've learned from the pandemic?
I think it's been a good thing for Tatty Devine. It's been sad because we lost our Brick Lane shop, so we moved out of there, but that was came to a kind of a nice conclusion. But I think I have a bigger, even though we were in charge before, I feel now I have more liberty to work whenever I want, which seems to invariably be more than before. But rather than working when everyone else is there, it's I can just have an amount of freedom to do what I want. And also I've discovered that I can concentrate on what I'm doing by myself much more than sometimes than in a room full of people. And actually it's quite a positive thing to focus on the jewelry as opposed to and the website and the this and that and let everybody do their thing. I think and the trust and everybody just doing their thing and in their own way and all coming together as a team at key points during the week it's really worked well for us. And I think that that our team really love it too. It's if you want to do yoga in the morning, you go do yoga.
We've completely sort of shifted, obviously, to a way of working online. With regular meetings, and what's been really interesting is, as Harriet says, rather than all being in a space together in COVID, in the lockdowns, and we're only just beginning to go back into the workplace, really, also members of the team, means that we can have a lot of one-on-one calls, which we used to struggle with because we did just have one studio space and we might go to a coffee shop to have a conversation with someone. It wasn't conducive to anything, really. Whereas with these very, very direct conversations that we can have one-on-one online, it's really actually become quite powerful. And we've really sort of marched onwards, and everyone's been very, I mean, there was a huge sense in COVID of we're all in this together, we're going to get through this together, and the team were absolutely amazing. You know, the production team on day one of lockdown, you know, the 3 sort of managers and supervisors in our workshop in Kent where it's all made, you know, they just kept it going. One going in to keep the laser cutter cutting, one going in to make sure all the parcels could be sent out, all the orders could be sent out, and then our production manager to make up kits, jewelry making kits to send out to the team to make at home. And it ran so beautifully, and everybody seemed to really love this sort of hybrid, and as Harriet says, this trustful way of working, where as long as the work is done, as long as the job is done, we don't need to know that you've clocked in at 9:30 and finished at 6. We trust you. Let's all just have a better balance here. And as a result, I myself have relocated outside of London. A couple of others have moved away and stuff, and I think it just sort of promotes a better balance. Whereas the studio now, rather than being an office that Harriet's trying to design in, the studio is a creative space that is the primary focus. And I think you can really see that in the jewelry, because I think it's got better and better over the last sort of 2 years.
If you could speak to your younger selves or any budding jewelry designer out there, what advice would you give?
That's 2 different things. My advice to my younger self would be go out more, even though we went out all the time. Be like, go out, do more, stay out later, don't go home. That's my advice. Don't go home. Always stay out till the end. Dance on more tables, but maybe eat more vegetables, not drink so much coffee.
I think that's good advice to anyone, really.
Gosh, it's so hard, isn't it? I think
but it's a different world now. So if the advice to starting to someone now is it's completely different. I mean, also just the same at the same time. I think people it's like you just don't be frightened, I think, because I mean, if we were trying to do it now, I would freak myself out by looking on the internet at the thousands of other jewelry brands doing it as well, because then it would be like a great big full stop. Whereas when we started, we didn't know anything, and we weren't frightened of our naivety because we're too naive to be frightened of our own naivety. And we didn't have a plan to get to Z. We were just worried about being in A. So I think you just have to start something and do something. If it feels good, do it. Doesn't matter whether you're making bouncy balls or spoons or whatever it is. If you love spoons, then you should make spoons, and don't worry about anybody else making the knives and the forks. It's fine. You just have to find the thing that you actually love and enjoy, and that you can't stop talking to people about, and you're not gonna
I think loving it,
complain about Monday morning.
Loving it is absolutely number one, because it's on many levels. It's like when you do your own thing, nobody's going to help or well, they will help, but you've just got to love it. It's really hard to do something you don't like we've said, so you've got to love it, so you want to do it, and it will become successful if you put all your love into it. Also, if you're selling something, it's much easier to sell something you love than that you're not bothered about. So to be able to passionately talk about what you do and sell it, whether it's an actual product or a service or whatever.
And then with the selling it, you have to value it. So you have to value your own time, and you have to realize that it's worth it. Because like when we first started, you haven't got any money, so you can't believe anybody in the whole world could possibly want to spend £25 on a necklace, because you have to find your necklaces in the bin, essentially. but as artists, we knew that our idea had a value as well as the actual object that we were making. So I think it's really important to strike that balance correctly, because if you do get successful, you're going to have to pay someone else to make it for you. So if you've made it the wrong price in the first place, then the
other piece of advice, which wasn't necessarily at the beginning, but at times has been true, is at times you think that how can you possibly be the expert at this, because there's other people out there, and you listen to other people, and then you realize, no, actually I am the expert in this because this is my thing. So to listen to your gut and to absolutely hold on to that. And yes, you need to talk to other people. You need to take people's advice. Don't ever let anyone tell you what you should or shouldn't be doing, because especially if it's quite a niche product as such, only you know best about this, and only you know how to do it, and to hold on to that.
I have one last question. What is in store for you both and the brand in the near future? Is there anything we can be looking forward to?
Oh my God, there's just so much. We barely can sit down. Like, because from now till Christmas, it's just like this, like, woof, just this like thing after thing after thing after thing. We've been making dominoes, and we're just going to just flick the switch and they're going to go domino rally everywhere. But yeah, some lovely projects. We're working with a lovely illustrator called Gemma Carell, and we've got our launch of our new collection coming up next week, which I'm really excited about, because that's where we do these Zooms. It's really exciting, where everybody who is interested in the brand will come together, and we do all the storytelling around the jewelry for that particular collection. And
this is a really nice positive from COVID, because in the past we would do it to a room of about 15 people, because that's how many people we could get in our space. But putting it online suddenly to the world, I think we had 150, 160 people went last time we did it. So yeah, that's really, really exciting.
Deliver their community a fix of colour and a platform for their voice, Rosie and Harriet have been successfully running and growing their brand Tatty Devine. As two female role models, they show us it can be done. And they offer an antidote to the sole designer model, which some of us are very familiar with. Their enthusiasm for the brand and the model with which they run it, even during challenging times, is additionally inspirational. Thank you, Rosie and Harriet, for joining us today to share your story and advice. We look forward to seeing what you do next with Tatty Devine.
Oh, thank you so much for having us on. It's been a total pleasure.
Yeah, thank you, Sophie. Thank you.
Next month, I'll be joined by another guest, so watch this space to find out who it is. But for now, this was Sophie Boons for the BHA podcast episode titled The Colourful World of Tatty Devine with Rosie Wolfden and Harriet Vine. Thank you for listening and have a wonderful day.